Welcome back, boys and girls. We are going to take some time as we do the next couple of videos because most of the concepts are going to be new. And so you may have watched the last video about database IDs and may not have got it, and that's fine. Like we're gonna walk through this, we're gonna do it together, and we're gonna make sure that you understand what's going on. So if you picture what we're trying to do, take a step back. So everybody has their RFID badges or whatever. They have a balance in their account. So we're going to basically set it up so that we have some kind of store, and we want to allow them to buy things with with their RFID things, and we want to allow them to add more money to their accounts. So how do we do that? We are going to start by designing our own database table. Now, this is going to be a foreign concept to a lot of you, and that's fine. We're going to talk through it, and we may even make a couple columns in here that we're not going to use, or we may change them or whatever, but we're going to kind of take some guesses. So I'm in PHP MyAdmin, localhost PHP MyAdmin, and I'm in my SmartScan database, and I'm going to hit new. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this table a name, and I would call it sales or something like that. But what I want to do is I want to allow us to add or remove money from this table. So it's not technically sales, it's all the transactions that are happening on someone's RFID badges. So I called it transactions, and then you know that we've done the ID thing a lot, so we're going to do ID. And then what we have here is int, and this means that it is an integer. So an integer is a whole number. It's a number that doesn't have any decimal places. And so your IDs are always whole numbers, and so we're going to make it to where it can be up to 11 numbers long, which we're never going to hit that. I mean, that's hundreds of millions. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hit this little AI button, and this stands for auto increment. And so if I hit the AI button, it's just going to pop up a couple of things here, and I can just hit go. But basically what that means is that it made this that primary key, so it'll have that little yellow key next to it. But it also means that it's going to auto increment, and every single time a new row is inserted in the database, it's going to create this ID for us. So the next thing we want to know is what student made the transaction. So we could put the student's name here, but we just talked about in the last video that that's a bad idea because, let's say a student gets married or, something like that, and the name changes. They go from Jim to Jimmy, and we want to not have to come back here and edit all this stuff. So instead, we're going to use their student ID instead of their student name, and we're going to make that another integer, and that is 11. And we just do 11 because that's a good distance, a good number of digits for the thing. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to call it done by. You could use pretty much anything there, but I'm going to ask you to use done by. And the idea is that this is going to tell us which user made this transaction happen. So we're going to do 11 there as well. Now, what we want to do is we're going to create this table first, then we're going to come back and add more things to it. The next thing we want to do is we want to record, let's do the amount. Okay, so the amount, we're going to do a little differently. We're going to do amount, and then we're going to do this drop down here, and we are going to go to decimal, and we're going to do 11, 2. And what this tells us is that basically we are going to force this to be a two decimal place number. So in other words, you can't have $4.1, you need to have $4.10. And this will allow us to go up to 11 digits to the left of the decimal and 2 after the decimal. We're not going to be making transactions that big, but that's enough. So just trust me on the 11.2, and we're going to hit save. So now you'll see that we have our structure here. We have the key, we have the auto increment, and now we're going to add a few more columns. So I'm going to put a 10 there because I don't even know how many I'm going to add. So we have the amount, and now the thing that we want to know is when did this transaction happen? And so we're going to say So we could either do a timestamp or we could do a date. Now the deal with a timestamp is every single time you update the row, the timestamp is going to update. So we're going to do we're just going to call it. I don't want to use date. Date created. And there's a reason for date is a word that is kind of a keyword in SQL. So we're going to say date created, and then we're going to come down here and we're going to do date time right there, because we want to know the date and the time that this transaction happened. Now, what other things would we possibly want to know about one of these transactions? Well, let's say, and we may not use all this stuff off the bat, let's say that we want to know the transaction type. So we want to know, did they buy something, or did they, were they charged a fee or something like that? So we're going to go transaction type. And I know we're getting a little bit into the weeds, and we may not use all this stuff yet, but we're going to put 11 here because that's going to be an ID also. And then just for the heck of it, let's give us a couple of more things that we can store here. Let's do a receipt. So let's say if we do a snack shop thing and we want to reference whatever receipt they had, we can do that. And then the last thing let's do is a department. Now, to be honest, I have no idea if we're going to use these things, but we're going to put them in there anyway. And let's see. We're not going to make any way to disable this transaction, because in the event that there's a problem, we'll basically refund the money. And so we'll do a negative or a positive or whatever. So I think that's good. We're going to save it, and we may come back here and add some more things. And now you'll see that we have this table called transactions, and it has a structure that has all these other things in there. So again, at this point, we're just kind of walking through the idea. This is every time you add money or remove money from a student, you want to have a good idea of why you did it. So, this is the idea of the transaction, the student that had their money moved, who moved the money, how much money, when did they do it, and then these three things are kind of here for us to use for allowing us to know like what types of transactions. So we're going to do one more since we're here. We're going to make a real simple one, and we're going to do a new table, and we're going to call this one transaction types. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make the first one ID int 11, and then auto increment and okay. And then what we're going to do is we are going to put description, and we're going to change this to varchar 255. And what this will allow us to do is to make different transaction types and give them a description. So if I hit save, what we can do is we have a small table here, and we're going to go to insert, and let's just say we can leave ID blank because that's auto incremented. Let's make up two different transaction types, snack shop, and let's say fee. We'll just say fee. And then you can hit any one of these goes. And then when you hit browse, now all of a sudden we have a 1 and a 2 for snack shop and fee. So I think that's a good place to stop. I think you might understand what I'm doing now. I'm kind of giving some ways for this for this snack shop thing to happen. And we are going to make ourselves a tiny little point of sale thing in the next video.